Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 176.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores. I am not ashamed that every time someone connects with me about anything related to a great friend, Kerry Mumford, one of the pioneers of sports psychology who passed away in 2013, I jump at the chance to contact them and learn from them. So when a club fitting and putting instruction friend from Australia, Adrian Dorshorst, connected me with Paul Smith, I got in touch with him. And I learned that Paul did a lot of connecting with Kerry when he was alive. In particular, Paul is one of the few who knows how to apply Kerry's style profiling system to help anyone understand their personal style. Style is a manner of doing something. Style is way different than personality, and knowing your style can help you perform your best in anything you do. Well, I thought Paul and I would talk about styles and Kerry's clear keys and Paul's book, 4D Pyramid Coaching, in this interview. But good for you, that would have been too much. So today, learn some of the important elements of understanding your personal style and also some tidbits from Paul's wonderful book. A great interview from someone located in West Australia.
www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 176 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. Tonight, at 9 p.m. here on Thursday, I'm speaking with, I already know, is a very interesting person, Paul Smith, who lives in West Australia, and he texted me about a half an hour ago, said there's a big storm in the Indian Ocean nearby where he is right now. A mutual friend, Adrian Dorshorst, I should be able to pronounce that, introduced us. Adrian's a club fitter and putting instructor. And Paul has a background in banking and many sports, including golf. But anybody who was a great friend of Kerry Mumford, if you follow my podcast and my blogs, you know I'm always interested in. And Paul published in 2020 a book called 4D Pyramid Coaching. And we're going to talk about both things, a little bit of Kerry, a little bit of his book. And boy, we are definitely going to talk about WTF, aren't we, Paul? So thanks for being here today and taking the time at, 9 a.m. on Friday for you.
It is indeed. The storm has rolled through. There's a bit of sunshine trying to make it through, but we're in the middle of winter, so we kind of expect this sort of thing.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's how it is, right? Well,
yep.
Talk a little bit about your personal story related to the world of golf. I'm going to talk about Kerry specifically after that. You know, how you became interested in it, you know, some of your background. In fact, you know, we have connections with somebody that is well known in the golf industry, Tom Wishon, and other folks. So go ahead and tell us a little bit.
Well, but my journey into golf started quite late in life. As a kid, I grew up out in Asia, and I played a game called hockey, and I'm talking field hockey, not ice hockey.
Yeah.
So I was kind of used to having a long stick with a curly bit at the end, and the ball used to move around a little bit. So it was a different skill set when I came into golf. But I went from playing field hockey, went into motor racing, did Porsche Cup around Europe for a few years when I was banking. I used to do my banking to relax rather than, sort of trying to kill myself on weekends. And then when I moved back down into Australia in the mid-1990s, I decided instead of living in tiny apartments up in Asia that I would get myself an acre of land on a golf course and maybe learn to play this crazy game. So I was one of those very enthusiastic hackers. Thought this is a lot more difficult than a moving ball. I just couldn't work that one out. And I did think to myself, okay, at the age of 36, maybe it's a bit late in life to get really good at playing this game. I thought, well, what else can I do? So I got myself interested in building golf clubs. So I took myself off to Austin and did 2 weeks down there in the factory with Tom Wishon and his crew, and had an absolute blast. Like how to fit people, how to do this, how to do that, how not to chop your fingers off when you're first learning how to do things. And I came back to Australia, and I talked to the local golf pro where I was hacking my way around, and it didn't take too long for them to work out that the level of golf club making skills that are taught in America was way above what the Australian PGA was teaching anybody during their apprenticeship times here. So I started up a bit of a hobby business, and the hobby business got a little bit busier than I really wanted it to be, and then another one of the golf pros decided that I was teaching on his range. Now, I was a 24 handicapper at the time, so there was no way I was teaching. But I thought, well, there's a gauntlet thrown down. So I took myself off to the States again, and I ran across a fellow called Chuck Evans, and he taught me how to teach the game the golfing machine way.
Right.
Now, I went from 24 to 10 in the space of 2 weeks.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Now, I'm 5'5" and I weigh 100 pounds. Okay, so I thought to myself, well, if I can do this, anybody can do this, because I can't hit the ball too far out of my shadow, but I could hit it straight. So over the years, I went back to Austin and then worked with Jeff Sheets and did the Master Craftsman course and learned how to grind things and do. And then I spent some time in Kansas helping Chuck out a driving range that was in between Kansas and Missouri. And the locals thought that it was quite funny that a little Australian guy could turn up and even want to teach in Kansas. But I had a great time doing that. Then down under, there's a large internet magazine that was about, which was called iSeekGolf.com, and I got asked if I'd run their forums. So I was doing golf instruction, club making, metal side of things. I had Kerry Munford would write a few articles for us, Lynn Blake, Chuck Evans. But most of the work that was on the website was actually Australian. So there were a bunch of coaches down here that I got together with that we ended up with, what was a fairly interesting look on the golfing machine by stealth, because people didn't realize what it was because it just sounded like common sense. So we ended up with a following there of, we used to get 1.5 million hits a month on the website. So it wasn't little.
Fantastic, yeah.
So that was pretty huge. So, over the years, Kerry and I used to talk a couple of times a week. Good old Skype back then, when it was about the only tool that was available for communications via the internet. We used to talk about all sorts of things, and it was quite fascinating going through, meeting Kerry in Tennessee one year when I was going through, just to be able to talk to somebody who'd seen there, been there, done that, and it didn't matter what topic you wished to bring up. He might not have an opinion on it, but he'd have a question on it. And it was something that sunk in my brain, that he was always open to listening to find out what you were really after. And I think that's a skill that many coaches can hone a lot better than just telling people what to do.
Now, what first connected you with him? Just because of iSeek, and he wrote the articles, and oh my gosh, what about this guy? Or was it that? Or
I actually met Kerry through Chuck Evans and the Golfing Machine crew.
Oh, okay.
Because originally Kerry was going to be writing part of New Editions in the mental section of TGN. So that's how we got together, and particularly when I was working up in Kansas, it made it easier for me to be able to pop down and go and pay him a visit with his family, and doing profiling. He profiled me via the Golfing Machine in the first place, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is me. I gave my profile to my wife, and she accused me of having an affair with this woman called Kerry. I then had to explain to her that, Kerry at the time was about 75 and a guy.
Yeah.
But she said, no, he's definitely got you absolutely pigeonholed in this thing. So that intrigued me enough to, kick on with Kerry and say, well, how does this work? Why does this work? So I did probably at least 10 years of learning and reading and discussing stuff with Kerry, and it was a terrific friendship from my point of view. And when we finally got together, it was like we hadn't seen each other for a week.
Yeah,
it was just one of those fit into the family, like you'd always been there.
It's funny you say that too. I had lunch with him once in, I guess, Crossville in a Cracker Barrel. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and I had corresponded or read his articles or whatever for some number of years. And he kept saying he was going to come to Oak Ridge and play golf and this and that, and he wasn't able to do that. But it was the same feeling walking in, and it was like, there's this friend that you had, just hadn't seen for a while. And he was like that. Yeah.
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 Now,
Go on.
No. Well, I thought maybe we'd go. Now, you had told me too, I don't know how many people are actually doing the profiling these days. I did try to do a little searching about that, but I know you still actually do it, and you learned it, pretty much from him. But what's so fascinating about the profiling? Now, let's see. I went back and looked at mine, and mine ends up being a counselor, okay?
Yeah.
Which is sort of a connection of craftsman, and I believe another one. But style is different than personality, and I think so many people think about us having different personalities and that affecting what we do. But that wasn't what Kerry felt and believed. It was, your style and how important that style is to how you perform in anything, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that whole arena there with what Kerry did and what you do with Style Profiles.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to describe the differences between them are a style is how you're born, and something which is your default level. At any time, your whole body just really wants to be what your style is, and let's call that the difference between nature and nurture. Mm-hmm. So your style is your nature. Now, the easy way to describe the different types of styles, and there's four main ones, and then there's a whole bunch that sit behind them. But the easiest way that I have of describing to Americans in particular is, if you think of people like this, you've got Donald Trump, Richard Branson, and I know he's English, but most people know who Virgin Airways is. Then you have Einstein and Steve Jobs. Now, all of those are different styles of individual. Now, you have a Trump is a driver, somebody who works hard, leads from the front, and they tend to be quite forceful type characters. Now, all those characters, forcefulness can be used wisely or unwisely, but you know who those people are. You then have a Richard Branson, who's he went from making a record company to airplanes to finance, but he is your archetypal entrepreneur. Everything I do is cool, so you want to follow me, and I have a good laugh and a giggle as I go through these things. But he leads through making things look cool. And you have your Einstein. Your Einsteins are usually fairly quiet, can be anal in the way that they go about things. They need to know the ABC to the XYZ and doing things in order to be able to understand how the world functions. They tend to be accountants, rocket scientists, and those kind of people. And they are more introverted than extrovert.
But they do. But if you ask them a question, they're going to give you just a delightfully detailed answer in a very scientific way, aren't they? Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking of an exact person, and I almost hope he's not listening to this interview, but he would know. And it's not that there's anything wrong with him, but I mean, that's just the way he is, and he's delightful in that way. Yeah, absolutely. And there's no right or wrong between any of these things. It's just who you are. And then the last one, we get to Steve Jobs, and it's like, well, Apple's pretty cool. So you'd think that he might be, one of those Richard Branson types. But in fact, the way that he went about doing his business is that he had huge ears. He would listen to what people wanted ad infinitum, and then he'd go and talk to some of the analysts who would be programmers or whatever, and come up with solutions that actually made everybody's life a little bit easier. So they tend to be the counselors and the peacemakers and whatever. They're your harmonious person in the office that's always trying to come up with a solution rather than talking about the problems. They know what the problems are, but they won't necessarily, use the problem in a public forum. So between those four different groups of people, I'm going to throw this one at you. You've got to answer a question here, and who knows, somebody might be listening. Who was your favorite teacher at school? Oh, in college? Anyway, your favorite teacher. It was interesting. It was a guy named Dr. Robert Horniak, and he taught fluid mechanics in my sophomore year of college. And there was something,
Okay.
well, there were two people, right? Okay, let's go two people. And for some reason, because of he influenced me to, well, he didn't influence me. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. My career path in engineering was related to fluid mechanics, and it was the start of that. But then I had a teacher in graduate school who was, he was one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And he taught this courses in rarefied gas dynamics, and he was my PhD advisor. But
Yep.
he walked into a room before every class, and he filled the blackboards with all the things he was going to talk about before he did it. And every year that he taught a class, he would totally redo the notes.
Yep.
And it was, something about both of those people attracted me. They were the two most memorable people I was connected with in school.
Okay. So now a bit of a maths question for you then. How long did that take you to think of who those people were?
Oh, the first one, Horniak, right away. And then I also realized that the other one was equally important because, it led me to be in Oak Ridge, but also, I mentored under him, I guess, in terms of my PhD thesis.
Okay. So now think of a number of seconds that it took you to think of those two people. And you can cheat. You can go back to the podcast.
Less than 30 seconds, I think.
Less than 30 seconds. Okay. So I'll give you the tip. When you go back to the tape and you have a listen to it, that first name came out in less than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's that fast. Okay. Now at the other end of the extreme, now have a think about who your worst teachers were and just pay attention to how your brain starts to filter.
I'm having a hard time trying to come up with them.
Yeah. It's just like, oh my goodness. So now what you've actually just found in that conversation is that the people that teach you best are the ones that are closest to your own style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you're obviously into engineering and mechanics. So at a guess, you're probably an analyzer. It's only a guess.
Yeah.
There are many things that layer on top of these things, but it's amazing how fast you can remember those really influential people in your life.
Yeah.
So now we go back to how do we actually tell the difference between a style and a personality? Now, a style is just who you are and how you listen and see the world. But as we grow older, you learn how to cope with the world. And coping with the world, as soon as you go to school, particularly high school, you try and fit in with everybody that's around the place. And, your natural style can now have overlays of that social side of life. You might want to say something straight out to somebody, but you have to learn how to say it politely or in a way that's not going to embarrass you. Or when you're at work, you have to work out how to deliver good news, bad news stories, make sure that everything's going to work hunky-dory in the office. So that's the difference between your personality and your style. Your personality is actually a coping mechanism for the world.
Yeah. Okay.
The further you get away from your actual style, the more energy it takes out of you to actually cope with the situations that are going on around you. And there's one thing that Kerry used to talk about that's really given a lot of light, is that everybody's born with a battery. and you can recharge that battery. But even a good battery, a good lithium battery, will only have so many recharges in it before it goes poof. So Kerry was always talking to me about people who wish to play golf or do anything like that. The closer to your own style that you can play in, the less stress you're actually putting on your mental game and your physical game and your thinking side of things, your planning when you're playing the game. So it's really quite important, because you can see people on TV every week where a player looks really good and then all of a sudden they fall in a hole. And you wonder, where did that come from? And so, well, they're trying to control the game too much compared to how they normally play. And I bet you see that all the time.
Well, and it's fascinating, too, on the tour because, they don't have to be good every week to have a life and have a living, right? Although, the best are more consistently good, and maybe they're more consistently sticking to their style. But some of them can be good 2 or 3 weeks a year and be doing awfully darn well, right? And if they're just sticking to where they are. The whole thing of style is extremely fascinating, and I think the more people can understand their own, and that's what's a little bit of a shame, that some of the style profiling that Kerry did is sort of submerged, right?
Yeah.
Although maybe not for you, because you're probably doing that with folks there that are around you.
Well, when anybody comes for a lesson. Was starting up doing lessons with me, and these days I'm more retired than not. But people will come in, and I'll say, right, well, can you just do this short profile? I said, there's no right or wrong answers, just whichever one of the choice of two you think you're closer to. And I said, if you're not sure between one or two, guess. Keep going. There's plenty of questions in there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing, is like, if I'm going to have to teach somebody who's a Donald Trump, I have to approach teaching them in a totally different way than I'm going to be teaching an Einstein. If I'm teaching a Richard Branson, I know that we're going to have a lot of laugh and giggles and things, which, for him is a way, a laugh and a giggle is either for fun or it's going to be hiding. Oh, WTF, where's the fairway?
We're going to come back to that, yeah. But it also becomes though what your style is and how you figure out how to be in your style as you're coaching, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Now, the thing is there, you've gone right down the correct path, is that most coaches don't know how they come across to the people that are listening to them. A lot of coaches will just assume that everybody's the same. And you go, well, no. And a big thing that Kerry and I used to talk about of what we called rah-rah coaches. Where you see the guys at the football at halftime, and they're giving these guys a right bollocking, as we would say over here. You might have to look that one up.
Okay.
You can't be doing this. You've got to be over there. And what the hell did you think that you were doing within an? But now we're going to all get together a team, rah-ha, what's the Marines thing in America, boo-ha or whatever. And they all go out and play okay for 5 to 10 minutes, and then it goes back to normal. So those kind of coaches are, if you like, the Donald Trump and the driver coaches. You're going to do this. I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to lead from the front to make this thing happen for you. So the kids or the person being coached goes along for the ride. I'm a persuader. As you can tell, I enjoy talking.
Yeah.
as a persuader, I like to have a laugh and a giggle. And if somebody like Donald is trying to teach me how to do something and I'm having a laugh and a giggle, do you think the coach is going to be impressed?
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not. And then if I've got a guy who's trying to teach me A, B, C, D, E, F, G, as a persuader, I'm going A, G, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And then go back
Yeah.
to fill in the gaps. So it's like, no, give me the big picture, not the little stuff. So if you don't know who you are as a coach, you're going to be teaching people who need to hear different bits of how to build their game. And this is why I do profiles. So when I know that I've got an analyst, I will go through all the pieces that are in the Golfing Machine checklist book. Actually, I'll give them the checklist after the first lesson. And I'll say, go to page whatever it is, have a look there. Did we discuss in this lesson this? And they all sit there and go, wow, we did. How did you do that? I said, well, it's a logical set of progressions. But you didn't know that there was that much detail that I was giving you to be able to do what you've just done. And they go, wow. But now I've got the analyst completely believing that I can teach him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, would I go through the same checklist with a persuader? No. He just knew it was cool and it was working. I know everything that's in the background, but they don't need to know that yet. And you fill the holes in as you go. So it's about profiling yourself so that you know how you come across to other people.
Super.
Do I talk enough? Do I talk too much?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I detailed enough? In the book, there's a section about never assume anything.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, specific, not stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something I learned ages ago because somebody told me, do this. And it took me weeks to work out, I don't know what they're actually asking me to do because all I'm seeing is this big blur of motion that they're doing. And I don't quite know what it is that they're doing, but I know I'm not doing it. My ball's not going the same way that their ball's going. So, yeah, that's the fun and games of understanding who you are, which comes back to the WTF number one, which is who's the foundation, not where's the fairway.
Yeah, right. Or not the other one, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, not the other one, that's for sure. So,
well, Paul, we're going to, I got to tell you, what this has done is, we talked before we started recording that we're probably going to do another one. And I think we're going to leave Clear Keys for another time. How about that? Because I'll bet we could do a whole interview pretty much about things related to Clear Key. And it's not this, it's not a problem. It's just good. I'm really enjoying getting to learn from you. But I do want to take a little time to talk, I guess first about, you published your book, 4D Pyramid Coaching for Sports and Business in 2020. And tell a little bit about, why you finally did that, because it was a finally. But then we're going to go back and sort of end with your WTF story that you told me, because it was so good that I think it's worth just, spending the last part of our interview with. Okay.
The book itself was, it was my Corona project, or COVID-19 project.
Yeah.
Down here in Australia, we closed our borders up very, very early in 2019. No, not 2019. Where are we now? We're in 2021.
2021, yeah.
Last year.
Oh, it's easy to get lost with it. Yeah.
It is at the moment. Like, what day of the week is it? It's anyhow. We closed our borders down so fast that the COVID-19 really didn't get a foothold in Australia.
Yeah.
So we've had all our mini lockdowns and everything else, but in Western Australia in particular, we've had donut days for so long until a couple of weeks ago when there was a little bit of the Delta variant sort of jumped off an aeroplane from interstate. But it meant that my business has mainly been international golfers coming in to spend a week with me to learn, play, and go home. Or myself and my son, who's an international athlete, he's world number 3 at duathlon, or was until COVID, means that I was sitting here twiddling my thumbs thinking, what am I going to do? So I sat down and I thought, right, I'll use the quiet time to finally put together the book that, with the idea that Kerry Mumford and I talked about probably 10 years ago. So the idea with the book was to take little pieces of information that I've picked up over the last 25 years of coaching and another 20 years of banking, traveled around the world doing that side of things, and put them down on paper. Now, the book's only about 100-odd pages long.
It's a very easy read, and it's a fun read because you take little pieces, that's a good way to do it too, I think.
Yeah, well, the thing that I've always found, that I've particularly found in the last few years, is people don't sit and read a book like they used to. Yeah. They'll jump on the internet and they speed read everything. So I wrote the book with every page is a story or a thought, and it was written not to give you the answer, but to make you think about what the answer probably is. And you either read through the book and go, aha, or, yeah, I remember that situation, and you put the words into the context of your own being. And that's what most people have kind of found when I've talked to them after they've read the book, is that there wasn't anything particularly new in there, but my gosh, I wish I'd have actually thought about that at the time when I was doing this, that, and the other. And you go, well, you can put that into practice going forward. And I've coached at international level for different sports. I've played different sports at international level. So I've got to meet over the years a lot of really interesting coaches. And you find as well, like, you wish that you actually asked deeper questions of some of these coaches to dig deeper into why you were asked to do something. As a kid, you just do it. You do what you're told. I've got to be in the team, so I've got to do this. At an individual sport level, when particularly in things like golf, if you don't ask the questions, you're never going to find out the reasons why things happen. A couple of weeks ago, I was actually looking at a young lady who plays golf. She's last year at high school. She's played 2 years. She's on a 6 handicap.
Pretty good.
Her dad,
wow.
Yeah, pretty good. Right? She's only little thing, but gosh, she's learned a good way to get the ball to go around. Now, her dad's 2 handicapper, and it was quite fascinating because I was asking her questions as we were going around rather than telling her things. And her father's going, gee, I actually did a bit of an apprenticeship at this game, and nobody asked me this stuff. And I said, all right, well, while we're going around, you're allowed to take notes as well.
Yeah.
So I just found it fascinating that things that I assumed he knew because he was a 2 handicapper, he didn't know. So the conversation while we were hanging back, while his daughter was playing, I said, if I knew that when I was 18, 19, 20, I could have been a contender, a real contender. And I said, well, you can still put these things into your game now. You know, you're not going to be contender on tour, but do you think you're going to be able to bust your 2 handicap with that piece of knowledge? And the guy stood there shaking his head, saying, "Oh my goodness, it's a whole new world out there."
Yeah.
So again, never assume. Always stretch. Always ask, and don't be embarrassed to ask. Sometimes, you know, the coach doesn't know the answer. A good coach will then go and find the answer. An even better coach will find the answer with you.
Yeah. Well,
how's that?
That's right.
You don't often see.
That's a good intro into, you know, why you wrote the book and things. But you know, before we started recording, you told me the WTF story, and I know everybody who hears WTF thinks of, you know, blah 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 blah, and there's there's some of that, but the story. And, you know, and we pretty much ended that today because, I mean, we've got to come back, Paul. If only for me, this has been a fascinating interview. So, and I appreciate you doing it. Tell the story about where WTF came from. And it is, let's see, I got it marked. It's page 4 in the book, right?
Yeah.
And it's really one of the most impactful chapters in the book, I think. But the story is even better.
Well, I actually wanted to call the book WTF, but the publisher said no. But, you know, I always look at these things and think, if you're going to make an impact, you know, make one that people remember.
Yeah.
So the story came about that I used to coach a lot of a funny game called cricket. And because of my golfing machine side of things, I can fix people who swing a bat faster than most because I understand what the root causes of A, B, C, D, E, F, G might be. So I walk into West Australian Cricket Association to do a lecture for Cricket Australia. We had 150-odd coaches going through to do their state-level accreditation. And I got asked to do a day talk. Half of it was biomechanics, and the other part of it was the mental side of things. Now, the big guns that were in front of me, it left me half a day to do both.
Oh boy, yeah.
So I was like, okay, how do I? Well, let's entertain people first. So I'm a bit of a technophobe. I'm not really comfortable playing around on computers and things, and, you know, video. As much as I'm a photographer and whatever, I don't like messing around with the editing tools, particularly for videos. Just I'll give it to the kids to do it. Anyway, I've walked up to the stage. I said, I don't know how to get the computer to talk to the projector. So I asked somebody to come up and do it for me, you know, hopeless Yoda. And they've turned the thing on, and across this huge stage, WTF comes up on the screen. All of a sudden, 150 people went from making lots of noise to giggles and laughs, and now I've got their attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to write down on a piece of paper what you think WTF actually stands for. A couple of ladies in the crowd put their hand up. You really want us to write it? I said, yeah, you know, just whatever you think. Doesn't matter. You can write it down in short form, whatever. So after a minute, lots more laughs and giggles and things. I said, okay, well, what did you write? A sheepish hand comes up at the front and said, well, what? Again, loads of laughter. I said, okay. Hey, anybody got anything different? No. Okay. Second slide comes up, and across the wall goes, who's the foundation? I said, as coaches, who is the foundation? And you could start seeing people paying attention. I said, well, it goes like this. there are two who's when it comes to coaching, not just the one. And so the first one is, who are you? How do you coach? Do we have the rah-rah coach, or do we have, the gentle, suggestive type coach, or whatever? I said, and then who are the people that you're actually dealing with? Let's go back very quickly to how long did it take you to work out who your coach, who your favourite teachers were? Yeah. So now I've got the crowd having a look at this, and I'm going, okay, so you've got who's the foundation? Know who you are, know who the people that you're actually trying to teach something to. But the rest of the WTFs can be things like, where's the fairway? Always gets a laugh. Like, why has the ball gone down there? Which comes down to, what's the focus? What's the focus is knowing what it is that you're trying to deliver to people in a format that you can communicate it. For golf, WTF, another one of them is, what's the feel? Mechanics produce a feel and a sensation that allows you to replicate it as long as you're aware of what's going on. A big part of the book is about awareness. Are you aware of this? Are you aware of that? How do you, unless you're aware, you can't search, or you don't know what you're searching for. You find things, but you haven't had an awareness process towards learning things. So at the end of this particular lecture, I asked everybody to write down what they thought WTF stood for. 5 minutes later, I told everybody to put their pencils and things down, and I said to them, well done, everybody, for surviving that. You just think now, every time you now think of WTF or you hear of WTF in your everyday life, your brain is coming back to this room, and you've now been psychologically implanted for the rest of your life. So that's the kind of power that you can have over your students, over your the people that work around you. If you're aware, you can always think WTF. Which piece of the WTF do I actually need to work with? And well, for the first time ever, I think in a cricket scenario, I had a few people start to clap, and they all stood up, and they were all doing the old standing ovation. And I got so much work out of that particular thing. Not for cricket.
Yeah.
It was people asking me about, how do I implement that within my business?
Right.
And I've gone, well, it's all the same thing. Doesn't matter whether it's sport or business. So that's the WTF story. That went viral. The Indians loved it because they're huge cricket people.
Yeah.
But I've never actually made it to India to coach cricket. I prefer them coming here.
Yeah.
So that's the fun and games of working your way through pyramid coaching. Is about awareness, confidence, resilience, and then the part that everybody usually teaches is process. So there's 3 big bits that are in the book, which is about communications and understanding yourself to be able to be a stronger person, and to bob and weave as we need to through life.
Yeah. Well, that was great. I mean, I'm so delighted you told that story in the beginning, because it helped. Before we got on, because it helped to put it. It's a neat story. Well, I think we're going to end, but boy, I hope you come back with me, and particularly, I guess I have a hook because I know you and I both are such big Carey fans, but we left out, unless we do a 2-hour podcast, which I don't think my listeners will really like, we didn't really talk in the depth that we really need to about Clear Keys, because they're pretty important for people that want to play their best. But Paul, I'm going to put a link in the notes about your book. I know you're working on a website. I don't know where that is now, but I may also put your email address in if anybody's interested in the profiling stuff, because it's pretty, I've forgotten for a long time how important it is. But the combination of, another interview I did with somebody, the Golf Smarter guy, Fred Green, and getting to talk with you, just reminds me how important that is to helping people to be their best. So
yeah, no, it's been a pleasure, and happy to come along and do another chat on the ClearKey side of things. It's very difficult to get a lifetime's worth of information into 45 minutes.
Yeah, it sure is, isn't it? But that just makes it more fun to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not very often that us people down under get invited to do things back into the States. So, I appreciate the audience, and hopefully you haven't had to go to the translator too many times.
It's perfect. As I told you before, it's one of the best sets of audio we've had. So you take care. Hang in for just a second. Great.
Okay. Cheers.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Well, Paul, thanks for everything you shared in this interview and for talking about the wonderful WTF story and your book. I did Carey's style profile in late 2005, and my style is primarily persuader with some considerable craftsman traits. I've realized I need to go for it more when I play golf, and the fact that I leave a lot of my putts short when I play is consistent with not playing to my style. I put a link in the show notes to Paul's email address and to where you can buy his 4D Pyramid Coaching book on Amazon.com. I hope some of you listening take the leap and connect with Paul and learn your personal style. And if you buy his book, you'll also get a lot of great value from it. Paul will be back with me, I hope, sometime in September to discuss Carey's ClearKey approach for playing on automatic. And I can't wait. My shout out today is to my good friend Adrian Dorshorst with True Fit Golf in Australia. Adrian connected me with Paul Smith, and I'm deeply grateful for that. I put a link in the show notes to Adrian's website. Well, that's it for today. My final podcast interview of July 2021 is in the works, and I'm hoping I can pull another great one off. It'll be fun for me and for your listeners. So until then, take care and stay safe.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com